Everybody loves and uses emojis. These cute symbols represent an amazing part of God's design for human feelings. Like many things, there's nothing God created that sin can't ruin. Because of our fallen world and of our sin nature, we are not simply blooming flowers as children. Children and their emotions need the love and structure of healthy parents if they are going to develop into the person God meant for them to be. If you're an optimist, I regret to inform you that the course of history indicates that life is full of unpleasantries. Jesus said, "In this world you will have trouble." Fortunately for the optimist, each hardship a child experiences provides an opportunity to deepen the parent-child relationship. Without a healthy parent to mediate life's hard knocks, the child is at risk for developing pathology. The child grows up, marries, has kids, and the sick cycle starts all over again. Bad things happen. They happen on the playground, and then they happen in the home. A study of these hard knocks in the home was published in 1998. The ACE study, as it has come to be called, is a study of adverse childhood experiences, or hard knocks. 8,000 adults in the San Diego area answered questions about their childhood, their health history, and underwent a complete physical examination, including full labs. The researchers focused on 7 categories of unhealthy family issues: child abuse, a family member with an alcohol or drug problem, mental illness, domestic violence, and an adult in the home involved in criminal activities. The optimist will be happy to know that 40% of the respondents denied having experienced any of the 7 categories. The number one family problem was parental alcohol abuse. Number 2 was light sexual abuse. I have no idea. Yeah, very unmeasured, sadly, and maybe not even tangible. And then the third one was the parent with a mental or emotional condition: depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, autism. But that's not the important finding. The researchers found that for people whose childhood included 4 or more of the 7 bad things categories, these adults were 4 to 12 times more likely to have an alcohol or drug problem and depression or suicidality. These same adults were 2 to 4 more times to be a smoker, have rated themselves having poor health, have 50 or more sexual partners, and no surprise, have 1 or more sexually transmitted diseases. They were 1.4 to 1.6 more likely to have a sedentary lifestyle, be severely obese, and to be fair, like diabetes, cancer, and severe obesity, some of this simply is genetic. However, this research can also be seen an answer to why doing marriage, family, and parenting God's way is critically important. Bad things happen. Bad things happen to children. Without healthy parents, children exposed to ongoing bad things develop into sick adults, and because of sick parents. Godly parents are there for their children as they experience life's hard knocks to help them make sense of their feelings and their thoughts. The following clip is an example of how parents help children with their thoughts as they develop. In the clip, we will listen to William, a young man with autism and schizophrenia, process some of his thoughts about prison.
Do you know what jail is really like? Do you have any clue?
I've seen some shows.
Yeah.
jail is almost like punishment more than it is a place to get better.
I know. Because in jail you have to do hard work. You have to work for the cops. So basically in jail you basically become a slave to the community. Mm-hmm. That's what they do. It's basically just slavery.
It's
overnight slavery.
It's kind of true, honey. And I think part of the reason there's a jail, honey,
Yeah.
is to keep people like that
Yeah.
away from the public, to keep the public safe
Yeah.
from people like that. That's what I think.
Okay.
So as obvious as it sounds, in order for this to happen, the parent has to actually be present. Although not very popular nowadays, secular research has found harmful multi-generational effects of divorce. There's a reason God hates divorce. Parents need to be there when something bad happens to help their children understand their emotions. We talked about the idea that my feelings are me. Therefore, feelings aren't right or wrong, and feelings aren't negotiable. A child may express a lot of things, thoughts, desires, and ambitions, and sin. We're talking about the God-created, genuine, honest, emotional part of a child. If you're like me, I always thought Mr. Rogers was somewhat an odd man who liked to wear sweaters and play with puppets. In 1969, Fred Rogers testified before Congress about why he did what he did and why they should continue to fund PBS. As it turns out, there was a method to his madness. In fact, Mr. Rogers realized the gravity of exactly what we're talking about.
And I feel that if we in public television can only make it clear that feelings are mentionable and manageable, we will have done a great service for mental health.
Let's talk about how our family teaches us about our feelings. When another person discards their public self and shares with you honestly, that is a privilege. If I have control over nothing else, I have control over who I let in. Some parents believe that they are entitled to their children's thoughts. In legal parlance, each of us is the legal owner of me, my feelings, my thoughts, and yes, my actions. That you signed a confidentiality agreement before participating in this training was to hopefully help increase the chances that you will feel safe to share you. The God of the universe allows you to be you. He will not control you. Remember the account recorded in John 6 where people responded to what Jesus is saying about his divinity and they leave. Of course, it was a hard saying when he was talking about how the people of Israel were provided manna to provide them with the food they needed. Of course, now he's talking about being the bread of life and them eating his flesh and drinking of his blood. However, when they left, he let them leave. If the God of the universe allows people to be responsible for their feelings, thoughts, and behavior, we should do no less. With the exception of mental emotional conditions and menstruation, events or behaviors precede feelings. These events or behaviors can occur in the environment, like being the third out with bases loaded. But they can occur in your head. If you're going to help people who are struggling, you need to do what their parent may have never done, and that is just listen to them, specifically listen to their feelings. The people you're helping want to be known before they want to hear what you know. Jesus almost always asked people what he could do for them before he did or said anything. You need to enter their world. So let's say someone steps on Monica's foot. Monica experiences something unpleasant. Monica doesn't like, and she expresses her feelings. The other person responds by apologizing and removing his foot from Monica's foot. Do you think Monica is a weirdo blurting ouch and telling the other person he's standing on her foot? This is the same process that should happen when somebody says or does something that steps on your emotional foot. We shouldn't feel embarrassed or ashamed when we say something hurts. No, we are not talking about encouraging the popular offended culture spouting off about each and every possible thing that we don't like. So what is an acceptable way to say that hurts? As Christians, aren't we just supposed to turn the other cheek? What did Jesus do when he was hungry? Well, he ate. What did Jesus do when he was tired? He rested. What did Jesus do when he was concerned about something? He prayed. Our feelings direct us to a need we have. Feelings are need-driven. So I say, ow, you're on my foot. And you remove your foot and apologize. Feeling resolves. We move on. Perhaps we grow. What happens if I say, ow, you're on my foot, and I'm told, well, you're too sensitive. Or worse yet, I'm not on your foot. That experience goes into what I call the emotional reservoir, where the reservoir of resentments and emotions unexpressed. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to see that over time, your reservoir will grow. So when you're meeting with somebody, you need to listen for their feelings in the bucket or the reservoir. You'll hear these feelings in the narrative that the person tells you. Spend time and ask about. Listen to their childhood history, siblings, relationships, without being invasive. This buildup of stuffed you typically results in pain, emotional, psychological, even physical, which may be manifested as sadness, anxiety, anger, withdrawal, sleep problems, and ulcers. In fact, you may be asking yourself, I thought we were talking about sadness and anger. Why are we talking about ulcers? Dr. Robert Sapolsky, Stanford professor, is one of the many researchers who found that ongoing, unremediated stress can wreak havoc on our minds and our bodies. In his 1994 book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, he says that it is about the role of stress in making some of us more vulnerable to disease, and sustained or repeated stress can disrupt our bodies in seemingly endless ways. As a general rule, people tend to share the strong version of their feelings. It might look something like this. In an angry tone, the person says, "Okay, I've had it with you, Dad." He's only concerned about what he wants. So, after much listening, you might say something like, "Wow, that sounds painful," drawing the person's attention to the likely first and more vulnerable feeling, which would be sadness. This is called reflective listening. Somewhere in the process, you might say something like, "It sounds like you might have difficulty sharing your feelings and needs with others or have been hurt when you've tried. I think I can relate." So this is where self-disclosure comes in. You don't want to overwhelm the moment, but you want to let them know that you can understand how that feels. This session is not about you. Warning, all of these well-intentioned words will fall flat and backfire with teens without three things. Many years ago, a study was done to determine common elements of effective counseling models. More than counseling methods, the study found that certain aspects of the helper were important, specifically warmth, empathy, and genuineness. Warmth is being friendly and relatable. Give the person your full attention.
Rogers.
Hey, Jeff. I'm glad to see you.
Hi.
Thank you very much for coming by. Can you tell my friends what it is that made you need this wheelchair?
Sure. Well, when I was about 7 months old, I had a tumor, and it broke the nerves to tell my hands and legs what to do.
I see.
And I got a wheelchair when I was 4 years old.
That was your first one when you were 4.
Uh-huh.
It's you I like. It's not the things you wear. It's not the way you do your hair. But it's you I like. The way you are right now. The way down deep inside you. Not the things that
I do.
not your fancy chair. That's just beside you. But it's you I like. Every part of you. Your skin, your eyes, your feelings, whether old or new. I hope that you'll remember, even when you're feeling blue, that it's you I like. It's you yourself.
It's you. It's you I like.
And it is you I like, Jeff.
Thanks.
And there must be times when you do feel blue.
Uh-huh.
I'm not feeling blue right now, though.
Me neither.
I'm so glad that you came today.
Thanks.
The next thing, which is empathy, is a feeling what the person is feeling. Put yourself in their shoes. You can check this by saying, so you feel blank because of blank. So you're really just tracking what the person has said. And it makes it feel like you understand them, and really all you did was reflect back what they were sharing. I'm not aware of anybody that demonstrates a greater gift of genuineness or sincerity than Fred Rogers. Most of us don't have this gift to the degree that he did, but his authenticity is probably the best reference.
The universal question about Fred is, was he that way in real life? And the answer is yes.
Francois Clemens, hi, welcome.
Thank you. How you doing?
Fine, how are you today?
Fine.
My feet were tired, so I thought I'd just soak them for a while in this water.
Does it make him feel better?
It does. Would you like to try?
Sure.
On the show, he would say, I love you just the way you are. One day I said, Fred, were you talking to me? And he looked at me and he said, yes. I've been talking to you for 2 years, and you finally heard me today. And I just collapsed into his arms. I started crying. That's when I knew that I loved him.
There are many ways to say I love you. There are many ways to say I care about.
No man had ever told me that he loved me like that. I needed to hear it all my life. My dad never told me. My stepfather never told me. So, from then on, he became my surrogate father.
I'm so proud of you, Francois.
Oh, thank you, Fred.
Can I help you here?
Thank you.
The power of unconditional positive regard, genuine caring, is powerful. It's powerful because it comes from God. Look at the effect it has on a woman who watched Mr. Rogers when she was just a toddler.
Hi, Mr. Rogers. It's a pleasure to meet you.
I'm glad to meet you. Thank you.
I watched your show as a youngster. I wasn't allowed to go to preschool because I had a disability, and my mom made me watch your show every day. So thank you.
Bless your heart,
Thank
and
you
here
for
you
my
are.
preschool education.
And thank you for inspiring me today.
Remember, warmth, empathy, and genuineness are not just traits of an effective helper. They are essential for healthy relationships. Let's think about it. In your closest relationships, are you able to share your feelings, needs when either someone has hurt you or hasn't done something important for you? You might be thinking, well, I tried once and it didn't go so well. Did it go something like this, perhaps? You shared your feelings and the person felt you were attacking them. So they attacked back. And something along the lines of, oh yeah, well, you. This is not easy. It takes practice, it takes courage, it requires maturity beyond age. When somebody shares his or her honest feelings with you, that is about them, not you. Ideally, the person is not playing games. They are trying to tell you what they are honestly feeling about something you're doing. You may or may not be aware of how your behavior affects them. Here's the question. For somebody that you love, a family member, do you want to know about something you do that causes them pain? The behavior the person references might be wrong, harmful, or even sinful by anybody's account. Your loved one's expression might be Nathan and you might be David, but it also might be you being you. Despite what the imperfect loved one might say or intimate, I would encourage you to see their expression as information, not accusation. How can someone let you know when you behaved in a way not intentionally that causes them hurt? Would you not want to know? As a listener, you might be aware of the behavior your loved one mentioned. You might even be embarrassed or mad at yourself for the behavior. More likely, you're mad at them for pointing it out. Whose pain are we talking about? Who gets to decide if I can have my feelings or which one I'm going to have? In a sense, the trick becomes hearing and talking about emotion without getting emotional. For the listener, you might want to try this. Just telling them you're sorry or confused or you never said anything before. Feels weird or fake until you make it. Would your loved one be free to say and respond with, I know, in a weird way, I guess I was afraid you wouldn't love me. Now I'm going to role play an example of a possible sequence we just discussed. Okay, so before we get off the ground, I just want to emphasize that when I get to this place in a therapy process, which is pretty quick in the chronology of 3 to 4 or 5 sessions, I emphasize that this isn't just the next thing, it is the thing. How to communicate what's on your mind, especially when your feelings are affected. And so we are going to take the happy column. So you have a feeling word list that should have been given to you in your handout, and then we have the active listening page. It's the third page of the active listening handout. So we are going to follow the script, and it's going to be tough for us who just want to add things or think we hear things, but you need to follow the script. And so we're going to use graduating high school as the first event that we're going to talk about. Before we meet is an event, and maybe some of you graduated with your mates, fine, but we're going to talk about how you felt the day you graduated high school. Now I also want to emphasize that, let's say that Mike said he felt proud. By the way, this is Mike, the Mike. This is hello. Let's say Mike felt proud and I felt proud, and with 8 to 12 definitions per English word, we don't ever much go deeper than that. Well, I felt proud too, and so we're on to the next thing. What do you want for dinner? So we don't break down the next piece of the conversation, which is number 3. Number 3 on your 5-step active listening chart. Number 3 asks, what about graduating made you feel proud? Now, in that scenario might be I'm the first one that graduated from high school. My grandparents came from Germany. I was the valedictorian. So there's a life behind the expression of what about that made you feel hurt? What about that made you feel upset? Now, we're not going to cover those columns today, but we want you to succeed at just the activity of listening and sending information. So I'm going to ask Mike to follow the script. He has a copy over there. And I'm going to demonstrate to you. And then we're going to have more personal, because then we're going to go to an event in your lives since you've met. This could be a friend. If you're not married or you're single, you want to ask a friend to help you process this, to learn the skill of listening. And hopefully they not only want to do it, but you would ask them also to be the sender so you can learn how to listen as well. So Mike is going to pick a feeling off the feeling word list, happy column only, how he felt the day he graduated. High school. Okay, Mike, so read number 1 when you find the feeling that goes with the event.
Okay. All right, so I felt delighted when I graduated from high school.
Delighted. Now, first of all, men don't use the word delighted, and especially when it comes to graduating. That's like walking through the daisies kind of word. Okay, so I'm the listener. I don't add anything. I just place the same words that he used, the feeling and behavior, down to number 2. I'm hearing you say you felt delighted when you graduated. Same behavior, straight down. Now, the most critical question, especially in the unhappy moments of the explanation, is what about graduating from high school made you feel delighted? Delighted. Okay.
I was just thinking about the freedom, just to be able to drive around and see friends and do what I wanted to and be free from homework. And
okay, so you actually had your own life.
Yeah,
kind of.
Yeah,
okay.
Just like I'm an adult.
All right. So I'm hearing you say the reason you felt delighted is because you were free to live your life.
Yeah.
You could come and go as you wanted. No homework.
Absolutely.
So you can kind of morph the explanation, but it needs to be inclusive of, and by the way, the sender needs to limit their explanation to 3 to 5 sentences so the listener can succeed at listening. So this isn't a dissertation time, and maybe the listener needs to have a piece of paper and pencil. Let me write down what you said so I can listen. It's going to be you're going to be amazed at how often we do not listen. It is not a gift. It is a skill. And so, all right, now I'm going to be the sender. So I'm acknowledging, Mike, is that what you said? Yes, I acknowledge that. And we're done. When it's under happy, we're not fixing anything. We're not changing anything. We are just learning something. Okay. Well, how did I feel when I graduated high school? And I felt fortunate. Okay, so Mike, I felt fortunate when I graduated from high school.
So I'm hearing you say that you felt fortunate when you graduated from high school.
Yes.
Now, what about graduating from high school made you feel fortunate?
Well, I didn't have parents that helped me study. And so the last 2 years of high school, they brought a vocational school in, and it was for accounting data processing. And I was the 125th graduate of 400. Now, had that not come, I don't know what I would have done. I don't know where I would have ended up in the myriad of graduates, So I just felt fortunate. My parents didn't help me study or focus on my academic attention. So I was so fortunate that I ended up that high on the chart.
Okay. So I'm hearing you say that you felt fortunate because you felt like you didn't do as well as you wanted to.
Right. But see, now he cut that short. And in some cases that might be the case, but yes, I was fortunate because I didn't end up as well as I wanted it to because I wasn't that smart. Because my parents did not help me study. So these might be insignificant when it comes to happy, but it's very important when it comes to negative. To be clear about what is being said or not said. Now I want to point out to you that number 2 under the happy column says, I'm hearing you say you felt. And that's critical when it's the negative emotional experience, because we stop listening right after number 1. When somebody says, it hurt me last week when you didn't call and you said you would, the listener says, well, you could have called me. So here we go. We are done listening. So you just need to hear what is being said, which is not about you. Mike's graduating experience wasn't about me. I wasn't even there. So I'm going to care for him and make him feel that I'm focused, genuine, warmth, and empathetic to his sharing. So now we're going to add an event since you've met. Since you've met. I've known Mike 20 plus years. I can't even put a date to it. Met in a church, been through professional things together, went to the same activities. So we're going to pick a feeling about something since we've met each other, how we feel about something since we've met. And so if it's a marriage, it could be the first time you held hands. It is not about the event. And if you have a problem with this, maybe you need to write down 4 or 5 things that you want to talk about, because we're here to learn to listen, not, get it perfect. And it isn't really about the event. It could be, I was happy since we met when our first date. I was happy when we met when we went to Disneyland that day. And what about that day was so special? So this is just about learning to listen. So I'll go first. I was first. Mike was first the last time. So I'm going to express my feeling about his assistance in the process that we are in the middle of right now. And I feel thankful for you, Mike, in assisting me with this project.
So I'm hearing you say that you feel thankful that it worked out, that I was able to help you with the project.
Yes. Number 3.
Now, what about helping you makes you feel thankful?
Well, and I think it's a self-sense of things, that I'm a guy who, if you want my assistance, and of course Valerie can attest to this because we're in the middle of something that she asked me to assist her with. And what I don't know is, and of course, how can I as a man when we don't ask for things, that Mike would have not only been willing to do this, but the detail to which he has gone. I am so thankful for his background that he could assist me, and you could assist me in this endeavor.
So I'm hearing you say that the reason you felt thankful when I helped you was that this is not something that men usually do.
Right. That's good.
We don't like being vulnerable or having to ask for help. Yeah. So.
Yes, that is absolutely true. That's absolutely true. Okay, Mike, anything since we've met that you're thankful for? Or, I'm sorry, happy?
Oh, he's trying to put words in my mouth now.
I have a tendency to do that.
See, he takes control right back.
I know what you're thinking. I know.
Let me see the list.
Oh, okay. Well, the list. Yeah, the feeling. Yeah, pick one. Yeah.
Okay. Steve, I felt admiration for you when I saw that whole process you did with Josh's emancipation and the knighthood ceremony. I had never seen a man put that much care and attention into his son.
Okay, so I'm hearing you felt, what was the word?
Admiration.
Admiration for the event that I had when my son turned 15. It was a manhood day event that you had never seen. You had never seen anyone do that before. So what about that event creates admiration? What was the admiring effect of that?
I mean, I just thought about all the planning, and you selected these people to be involved, and the tone of the ceremony was not all about like, hey, backslapping and hooray and my son's on his way to be a man, but it was very well thought out. And I hadn't in my life, I don't know any men that think that much about their son or their families. For me growing up, and that was one of a handful of experiences I feel like God gave me in life where it was like, oh, okay, that's what a godly man does. That's what a godly father does.
So I'm hearing you say the reason you feel admiration or felt admiration was the extent to the detail that was part of the celebration of my son's manhood, and that you have not been around men that have had that kind of attitude or desire to care for, share with, be a father to their sons, as I did.
Absolutely.
And by the way, if you read my book, that's towards the end. That's in there. You'll see that event if you would like to get the background of that experience. It's in my book if you want to read that. So the assignment is under the happy column only, and you will pick 3 events before you met and 3 events since you've met as the listener and sender. So the only thing I'm going to add is that you will then be the sender 3 times in a row so that you get that roll down. And hopefully by the 3rd time, you won't need the paperwork. And then you are the listener 3 times so that you are listening and not thinking about what you're going to say next after they're done saying, so you can focus on listening successfully. So 3 events before you met, 3 events since you met. And again, it could be the first dog you got, the first home run you hit. It's not about the event, but learning the skill of listening. We'll see you next week.